Hello guys, this is EG.DeMusliM, current player for Team Evil Geniuses. Here I'm going to show you a pretty good game between myself and EG.HuK, another player for Team Evil Geniuses, one of Canada's best in fact. I actually experiment around a little bit with Mech against Protoss, and if it's something you haven't seen yet, in HOTS it's pretty darn strong, so we'll get right on into this game.
Hello guys, here we have myself, EG.DeMusliM, spawning as the Blue Terran in the northeast part of Cloud Kingdom against none other than EG.HuK. Teammate, Red Protoss, southwest part of Cloud Kingdom, things are going to be cool. So as you can see, this game was played on Valentine's Day. Happy occasion for most, for a few of us gamers. Maybe not the best day, but hey, it happens. We make the most of what we have. Either way, start of the game, we'll fast forward a little bit, as this is pretty mundane. One of the only things to note is we put our SCVs on the closest mineral patches, and so the travel distance is less going back to the command center with the minerals. It's something if you have free time in your hands at the start of the game, you should definitely start doing it. 10 depot drops down, very, very standard. We do have our Protoss player also playing relatively standard, 12 gate and such. And then the barracks. You may ask, why not wall off over here? One of the things that I don't like is this probe that's going to be on his way to my base can harass around this area and deal a lot of damage to my initial SCV, which can cause me to pull another SCV or two, go help him out, and it's just loss of mining time. Here we have this heart. It's very infamous by EG.HuK in our base. It's what he likes to do, I guess. Anyway, we scout pretty early, before the factory, or before the barracks is even remotely done. That's so we can scout how many gases he has, whether it's a Nexus first, whether he's going to chrono boost a Zealot on the way to our base, because any of those things are relatively annoying. And in HOTS, the Mothership Core adds a lot of diversity to the openings for TVP. Given that it can apply so much pressure and time warp in itself, it's annoying. So we will slow down the replay pretty shortly, as things may start getting interesting pretty soon. We're just scouting the base, we do see a Zealot pop out, which usually indicates he may run to our base, or it's just for initial defense and to stop my engineering bay blocking if I do choose to do that, in which I can say I can then denounce that he's probably going for an expand. This Zealot wasn't early enough to make me worry, and it wasn't late enough to make me go, he's saving for something. Either way, in the main base, we do have pretty good saturation here, and immediately going into 2 gas. I'm a biocentric player, and as I talked about, this is me going to be playing Mech in TVP. This is something we haven't seen a lot of in Wings of Liberty, and for good reason. It just didn't really cut it. You couldn't get to it safely, you couldn't mount an army safely, there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't safe. Either way, we are doing it. We skipped the barracks, and we've played multiple times in the beta so far, and so he knows that I am a biocentric player, and pretty much everybody knows. Either way, double gas goes pretty darn well. Saturating still the main base, saturating the third base too. We have a third gas on the way, that might be a little too early, but hey, this is the first time we've tried the Mech in TVP. Natural on the way for our Protoss player, half count wise, pretty similar, 23 to 25. Protoss can chrono boost probes, but we have quite high chrono boost here, not really being used on much. Double bunker. One of the reasons for this is if he did choose to plant down a bit of pressure, I hope he'd see this before he chose to initiate and just see that I have 2 bunkers, in which if I have a bio squad elsewhere trying to defend, he would die. So here we have the factory being built with the reactor. It's going to be made a switch, as one of the most popular things you can do in this matchup is make either Hellions or Widow Mines, both very good later on. The natural being muled out, very, very handy. You don't want to mule your main base, as these minerals are already lower than on your natural, so you want to make the most of it with the time that you have. 2 Widow Mines on the way. This is purely for defensive reasons at this stage in the game. A starport on the way too, and an armory. The armory in this patch meant that you could get Battle Hellions pretty urgently, and they're a very good unit to have. As you can see here, we have a scan, lands on 4 gateways, and the warp on the robo facility too. What does this really indicate? All we can say is it's a bit of pressure, possibly. Where? We have no idea. These Widow Mines are going to be coming out soon. Oh, we have a third command center too by myself coming out. So Widow Mines do start getting planted in the ground. They're ready to just act as defensive units. What do we have here? Even more Widow Mines in a second factory being made. A Viking also, so we can sense that something is going to attack us pretty shortly. Good saturation. Supply depot call down. I got a little supply blocked. But, in fact, no, I didn't. I just did it preemptively. Didn't want to be worried. Oh! Widow Mine does blow up on this Warp Prism, leaving it with just 40 health. These Marines are running up the ramp. These sentries are dropped, but they let him get through. And does that? The Warp Prism falls down. That is a great tragedy. We have these 3 sentries left stranded in the front base. This push at the front did not amount to anything. The Stalker actually died too. And we just have 3 sentries stranded in the back of the base. And a Viking is more than enough to take them down, as he does 12 damage per hit. And that is significant. The Widow Mine does blow up on the sentry. Unfortunately for me, it deals damage to one of my own SCVs, and the sentry just gives him a little peck, and he does fall over. As we can see though, through HuK's view, he did see exactly what was up. He saw our mech strategy, he saw Widow Mines, he saw our 3rd CC, he saw the armory. So we're completely revealed as to what's going to happen in this game. 3rd Nexus going down, lots of gateways, robo facilities, robo bays even, and a 3rd base, so he knows he's kind of playing catch up here. As for macro-wise, both macroing pretty well. SV count is high, probe count's decent, upgrades on the way, 2nd armory on the way. Only 3 factories thus far, but as we do take this 3rd base, I'm pretty sure I'll add some on. We will fast forward a little bit ahead. We do have this Viking that is scouting around the map now. Might as well put him to good use, since he's not going to do anything in our base. Taking this base. One good thing about this, with Widow Mines, you can position them however you want them, but also have the tanks on the high ground. More factories being dropped down. 2nd armory for upgrades. We're looking pretty strong this game. This Viking, where did he end up going off to? Oh, he's still over here. But with this, we do get to scout exactly what he's doing. We get to see his 3rd timing, and we get to see that we're actually not that far behind at all, if at all. Again, we see the saturation, and we're like, okay, it's just started, That's a lot of probes, but nothing to worry about. See Double Forge, we see the Twilight Council just finished, so we know that he's not going to have level 2 upgrades just yet. Saturating the space. The Viking does try and kill that Mothership Core. Unfortunately for me, I did not know that Planetary Nexus would kill the Viking faster than the Viking kills the Mothership Core, but it happened. And so we know never to encounter a Mothership Core with good energy next to a Nexus, as that will happen. You will die. We'll speed up the process again, as this is just the building time. And the reason I'm speeding this up, Mech is not a, hey, I'm going to keep on attacking you until you die kind of strategy. Mech is a, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for 6 months, I'm going to get really buff, and then I'm going to knock you out. It's not the, hey, let's scrap for absolutely years. No, not at all. It's the big thud, if you like. So here we have Hellions being made, tanks being made. We have Vikings being produced too, as one of the only weaknesses of tanks and Hellions from a Protoss is air. And Colossus, obviously, are always pretty useful, in which Vikings can deal with them very, very efficiently. Level 2 upgrades on the way for both of us. Photon cannons being dropped, as I'm pretty sure he does not want any Hellion harass in his mineral lines. So that's wise by him. As you can see though, the supply, as a Terran player, we have just a lot of money with all these mules. Mining-wise, we're always ahead despite having less harvesters. And so that's one of the strengths of Terran. With good or decent macro and setting yourself up financially well, you're going to do fine. Here we have some Hellions trying to do some harass or just even scouting out the army composition. Obviously didn't get up to much given they ran into Colossi, but that stuff happens. Here we have Stalker Squad moving out across the map. They don't quite yet have Blink, but given that he knows I'm going Mech, he doesn't have to worry about running into any concussive shells. These are purely for scouting along with this Observer. 4th base is going up. Hellion going into the natural. Sees an Immortal. Also sees this cannon and such. Mothership Core does deal with him. Oh, he gets 1 kill. So that was decent. A Planetary Nexus. That was a decent Hellion actually. He got a kill, a probe kill. Forced that and got some scouting information. It was definitely worthwhile. Here we have the buff guy. This is 5 months into training. He's even throwing down starports for extra Vikings. This is just in case of a big air switch. But look at this, he's moving out. How do you deal with this army efficiently as a Protoss? The answer is yet to be known in Heart of the Swarm. Battle Hellions have 50% more health than normal regular Hellions. They also do a lot of damage. Here we have plus 19 to normal, plus 32 to light, and 135 health. One of the main things too is they attack in a cone-like fashion, meaning if 3 Zealots are hitting your single Hellbat, they'll most likely hit all 3, rather than a Hellion where it can only hit 1 at a time, unless they're lined up very, very efficiently. 198 supply, we are approaching our Protoss opponent, and we are setting up this siege contain with our Vikings available. Everything is going totally fine here, and our Protoss is definitely under fire. Mothership Core takes a hit. He does throw down the Planetary Nexus, which is certainly going to help. Storms go down, but High Templars go down, and the siege tanks definitely wreaking havoc over absolutely everything. Siege tanks move forward from the back. Zealots do run in, and while the Hellbats are definitely dwindling, the Protoss army as a whole is totally getting annihilated, and from 160 supply to 80 right now in the current game. This Planetary Nexus is the only thing that's keeping this army back right now. Is focusing a few Vikings, which is all well and good, but the tanks do move in for the kill, and they are trying to kill. But here we have so many charge lots coming in, and they do take these tanks totally by surprise and clean up this attack. But at what cost? We have 58 Harvesters to 69, and while that attack did suddenly die, you can see here that it's very easy to refund. All these factories in total production here. Hellbats, whenever the factories need to produce, they are producing. We even have a 4th base flying over, a 5th and 6th base being produced. Macro at this point is pretty easy for a Terran player. All you have to do is make sure that you don't really mess it up, and that's not exactly hard to do. Tanks very efficient, dealing with everything. Hellbat's also very efficient at dealing with everything, and then you just get the Vikings for the air support. It's a pretty easy army to make, and it's very simple. Hellbats deal with the Zealots, tanks deal with everything else. We have good storms landing on these Vikings though, and a pretty well cannoned up 5th base. But again, taking up this siege position, maybe this attack by myself is a little bit scarce. We don't have enough Hellbats to really say, hey, we're really going to make the most of this, since we are getting flanked by from several locations by lots and lots of Zealots. And as you can see, the Zealots are definitely taking care of the tanks. The Immortal does fall, the Zealots are falling too. But that was not really a sufficient trade for our Terran player, which is me. But either way, we do fly these red Vikings away. We do have a lot of Hellbats over here, and a lot of tanks. Level 3 upgrades on the way. Our 5th base is landing, and with this 5th base, this is actually very, very good for us. As you can see, we have a lot of mule energy, we have a lot of SCVs transferring, and these 5th and 6th command centers are finishing, which could be turned into orbital commands as well. Here, several Stalkers do kind of fight this Terran army. Unfortunately, they do receive a pretty large volley, and you can't really engage tanks with just Stalkers. One of the lessons for Protoss players. Still a lot of mule energy. I could be making much better use of that, getting way more minerals, but again, all these factories are still in total production, and we even have these factories added on now, and without every mule being used, we're still doing totally fine. Here our army is getting to that buff stage again, where we've spent a lot of months training, and we're finally ready to take him on. Maybe it's worth waiting till 3-3 and the 200 supply mark though, I'm thinking this time, given that we dealt a lot of damage over here to these harvesters. We killed practically everyone at that base, which was worked out as something like 25, 26 to be exact. Lots of Battle Hellions joining the fray, tanks. We even have Tech Labs joining too. This is my main thought pattern behind this was Ravens against Tempest late game. You can actually negate Tempest shots with the point defense drone, and a Tempest fires so slowly that is probably the most efficient shot that you can deny with a point defense drone in the game currently. Here we have a few Hellbats thinking they're way buffer than they actually are, and they are sickeningly buffed, so they do decently well. But here, this position being gathered once again, Hellbats at the bottom, tanks unsieged and sieged at the top, taking out this relatively small Protoss army. High Templar here, does it get off the storm? Does get off the storm, killing 2 tanks. But again, the Protoss is in a world of trouble. Despite these decent flanks, this Terran army is just not being thwarted whatsoever. We have more Hellbats this time, and that is probably the key ingredient to this push maybe succeeding. Good upgrades still going down for our Terran player. 5th base is up and running, and this 5th base by our Protoss player is definitely under siege in a way that it does not want to be. We even have probes trying to go over to this 4th base, or possible 4th base of HuK, that cannot get it down. This tank just kind of shelling them as they come close. getting ready for a sort of flank here again. The, the Zealots against the Hellbats, they are not going to win that fight. With the Immortals against the Hellbats also, and these tanks just shelling on these Immortals. Hellbats removing the shield given they have a relatively decent rate of fire. And the Stalkers, Zealots, everything just melting. These Hellbats also stood in the mineral line, and this is not looking good. This is 200 supply against 100. Storms landing on these Hellbats, but these Hellbats are so buff, they're just kind of withstanding it, and while they do take a lot of damage, they're all red. They are still dealing a lot of damage. Again, this line of mech units is just unwavering, coming out of all these factories. They're all producing at a pretty alarming rate. Not even every mule's being used right now, so this is how efficient this army can really be. Widowmines do land on these Zealots, and they do deal serious damage, so there's just nothing our Protoss player can do at this point. The army is too good for the Terran player. Even this group of Zealots does run into a bit of a pack and get melted instantly, and even though it's only 4 Zealots, you can definitely tell how powerful this army is in terms of firepower. 3-3 mech. It's not every day you see that against a Protoss player, but as you can tell, it may become every day that you see it, as this strategy is very, very strong. Storms do land. The Protoss army, though, is just absolutely getting destroyed here. Still at practically 200 supply, 5 tanks on the way, getting building armor for our units too. High Templars do come over, and it looks like this Widowmine did blow up a High Templar earlier, which was pretty cool. But again, the bases are lost for our Protoss player. This Archon is going to start dealing damage over here, but he's a one-man army right now. Several Archons being morphed in. Lots of... ooh, those probes do meet a bitter end. But tanks, even in non-siege mode, deal a lot of damage to these Archons. All they have is their shield, pretty much, and once that's gone, they're dead. Several siege tanks sieged, everything just melting away. Archons, Stalkers, you name it. The Immortal runs in, though, and he does focus the low-health tanks. Those Immortals and Zealots did deal a little bit of damage, but again, how many tanks died? 3 tanks died. The supply is 18. We have this little warp prison that is flying around. What can he do at this stage in the game? He does get hit by one Widowmine with this Templars land, but again, another Widowmine lands, and boom, the Widowmines kill everything, including a lot of SCVs. But that was a pretty good game.
In Heart of the Swarm, Mech's still pretty new, but it's definitely becoming more prevalent in pretty much every matchup. Hellbats are really good against everything, Siege Tanks are obviously good against everything, and while Widowmines, they're a bit of a nightmare right now. In this match you saw Widowmines take place in a pretty weird defensive format, but they did really, really well. And Mech itself, Hellbats are an absolute delight to use against Protoss, so it's definitely something worth trying out. And this is just a one game off, but I'm pretty sure I'll be practicing it even more. This is brought to you by Razer Academy. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.